everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of Conversations with Musicians. I'm super excited today to have Travis here, formerly from the Elwins and from his project Savart. Good to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. Likewise.
Yeah, appreciate you doing this.
For sure. Yeah. It I definitely was like, yeah, but then I was like, right, because the band is breaking up. So maybe he would be interested, but I appreciate you still wanting to talk.
Yeah, well, honestly, before I didn't even know you had your solo project too.
Oh yeah,
So
I don't really promote it, so
yeah, but I'm like, that's super cool to talk about, especially as like a drummer too,
mm,
that you kind of did
right.
everything.
Well, yeah, I can't take credit for everything, but I think definitely at first I guess I've been writing songs for years. It's just there was a point in the band where it seemed like things were kind of gonna, get like busier and busier, and I felt like, you know, I got to, I got to start this at some point. I got to start, recording these songs I have, like this mountain. Even still to this day, the mountain is so big of songs like that. I avoid picking up a guitar because I'm gonna create something. It's like my strongest um the strongest part of my being as a musician is being creative. I'm not the most proficient player and stuff, but I know I can make up something like pretty easily and be proud of it to a certain degree. And so I felt like, I don't know, this would have been like 2013 or 14. I'm like, okay, I got to start this. So I started and I wanted the whole thing. Like I wanted like drums, bass, and, the whole kit and caboodle, not just, like songs, which I still love. Like I'll probably make hundreds of songs that are just like that and are presented that way. But I wanted the blast off kind of to be a full thing. That kind of got sidetracked a bit, but eventually that record came out, my first full length, because the EP came up technically first, and then like a single, and then my album. But the album was actually the first thing.
That you started working on?
Pardon me?
That you started working on? That was the first thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you did you start when you got into music? Did you get into drums first or then did you get into guitar or did you like learn along the way, like chords and everything?
When I was a kid, I got like my family wasn't into like hockey or like sports really. So like we would do like, I don't know, we did like gymnastics and swimming. And then music was kind of like, oh, like throw him in a piano class and see how he likes it. And like I didn't like it. And then I tried again in a few years, didn't like it again. I think I tried 3 times and I just didn't take to it. But then one time I tried drums and it just I didn't really vibe with it. But it wasn't until, excuse me, I just had dinner. Um,
Oh, me too.
I saw the Last Night Strokes video, and that was like a huge moment for me. And I just thought these guys look so cool. I love this song. And I thought, wow, I get to sit down too. Like that's pretty cool. Cause I'm kind of like maybe a more reserved, shy person. So getting to be in the back was appealing. So for those reasons, the next week I bought a drum kit with my dad and and I took lessons. And luckily, my teacher, I'm still friends with him to this day, and he's great. He actually was the same drum teacher for Greg from Tokyo Police Club. Little fun fact there, but yeah. Um, and with guitar, it honestly was like because I was like in a band. My first band was in grade 8, we'd finish our very short practice, which we thought was really long at the time, like maybe like 15 minutes. And then I I just kind of like pick up my friend's guitar and I just kind of just started playing it, not knowing what I was doing. And then it just kind of evolved from there of just like, oh, that's an A chord, like the 3 right there on the second fret. And you got to let that high E ring if you want that sound. And it was just like a slow chugga motion. And then the thing that really kicked it off, like into the next level, was when I got the Beatles chord book and the Beach Boys chord book, which there's far less Beach Boys songs in comparison to the Beatles one, because the Beatles one is like the retrospective, like everything. Whereas the Beach Boys one was like 40 songs. But through those two bands, I really learned a lot of different chords and, how to like strum and like, oh, this is how they play it. And like, if it didn't sound right, then I just had to keep practicing it. And through just a lot of experimentation and through a lot of band practices and just like off time, I would teach myself how to play guitar. And I did take like a few lessons just to learn riffs at the very beginning. But then I realized like, oh, I'm paying money to learn riffs and YouTube exists. So
Yeah.
I stopped that. And that was just like, that was some good foresight on my part at the time. But it was still cool. I think every experience kind of has been helpful. I never learned like scales or anything. Like, I know what some chords are called. Like, I know what a lot of chords are called, but why they're called certain things, like I couldn't tell you what the circle of fifths is, but I've been taught it. It's just like math in and out the other ear. So that's, to answer your question, that's kind of my history with music.
Was that like when you got into guitar too? Was that like before you started like playing with Matt and that, like starting early days of the Elwins, or did you do that afterwards?
Wow, I
I know
gotta think about that.
you're a young guy.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, I must have been in my tinkering stage still. I was probably just kind of like poking around on it, but I didn't really like. I knew a few chords, and like I maybe made up like a little thing on the 12th fret or something, like using a couple high strings. And but yeah, it was more, the more Matt and I's friendship kind of blossomed. We'd teach each other stuff. And like I'd learn like a Supergrass song, which is like maybe my favorite band sometimes. I don't know. They're definitely up there for me. And yeah, we just kind of like show each other stuff. And then we like learn like parts of like a Burt Bacharach song together. And that really kind of really opened our ears and eyes and hands to many different chords. And it was all very um, educational. Yeah.
I was like, when I was listening through your album too, honestly, I thought it was Matt that was doing the vocals on all the songs. The style is similar, and then I was like, holy Jesus, Travis.
Yeah. Well, fair enough, because I wrote half of those songs with Matt, so it would make sense that like some of the phrasing, the vocal stuff would be like very akin to like what he might do, because we wouldn't really like put a bow on a song unless like we liked it. And so both of us would, have to kind of sign off. And yeah, that's interesting, because sometimes people in the, like, people would ask us, or they'd be surprised rather, that Frankie sang when they first saw us play live, because like, oh, we thought all the songs like Matt sang, and then Frankie's like, no, I sang some of them. But it's just that the styles are kind of similar enough. I guess it's like a thing we like. There's, I don't know, the je ne sais quoi of like phrasing, vocal melodies and stuff that's we all similarly like. I don't know what to call it though.
Yeah, a lot of harmonies on the songs and stuff too, if you like actually pay attention. If you're yeah, I could see that if you're listening to some of your guys' songs, it might just sound like Matt's doing it, but Frankie's like backing him up a lot and doing harmonies. And
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
did you just kind of pick up on singing over the years too?
Oh gosh, singing. I don't consider myself much of a singer. I can hit the note enough, but I have a very small range. I don't know how to sing technically, but part of me doesn't really want to know because I like the almost like scrappiness and DIY approach to music in general. I think there's something to be said about an opera singer, for instance, or anything in that kind of arena. But I just like a lot of music that is kind of scrappy, and it just works out in my laziness to not take vocal lessons. um, yeah, singing was more of a means to an end because there was a point where I thought there should be a different singer for each of these songs because I was so like, you know, unconfident in my own singing abilities. But then eventually I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't really care. I really don't care. Because then it'd have to be like, it'd just make the whole process so much longer, which is such a drag. Like making records, like they take way longer than you ever want them to, for the most part. Recently, I did some recording and it was so quick and I loved it. And like, it's some of my favorite stuff I've ever been a part of. So, yeah, singing, it's a neat thing that on the one hand I wish I was better at, but also I'm not peeved by any means of where I am at too.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, I find, from that perspective too, of like songwriting, whether it be on drums or guitar or piano or singing. It's kind of nice not knowing
Yeah,
the scales and everything, because you could just touch and hear what sounds good to you.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've met some musicians who are just like extraordinary. They're wizards. But I know one of them, and he said to me like, "Yeah, it's just since you kind of know everything, like he's not pompous in any way, but you got to think like you have so much knowledge that that ability, I mean, it kind of is to just kind of have free range is kind of a bit gone, which isn't, that doesn't sound fun. The mystery's gone. So it's almost like having this like funny curse of being really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
I know
assuming you write songs
I've
too.
yeah, a little bit with the I kind of do the same thing. Like I play drums, kind of play piano and mess around with like MIDI sounds, but I never got too far with lessons either.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just make instrumental tracks with one of my friends who plays guitar and piano.
Cool. Yeah. Piano's my fave. Still can't play though. Yeah, I love it. My wife plays piano.
Yeah, I saw that she, I think in the summer, put out an EP or
Yeah,
album. It's really cool.
yeah. For our honeymoon, I recorded an EP and then she recorded a record.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it was fun.
Did you guys both do that like in Toronto?
We did it in Guelph, actually. Yeah, it was really nice because like we got an Airbnb for some of it, and then the other parts we just stayed at like the producer's friend's house who happened to be away with his partner. It was an entire house. So I was like, this is so sick.
Yeah, that'd be a cool environment.
Yeah, it was really nice. Like I'll always have like fond memories of that experience, and I hope to do it again one day.
Have you ever done that? Like, I know some other bands, there's a band I like a lot called The Main, and every time they write an album, they'll do like half the writing process and recording, but they'll like travel somewhere and just like rent out a house or something.
Smart. I mean, we did that as a band here and there, and honestly, it's always the first thing you talk about. Or at least we did. Like, was like, where are we gonna go? You know, like. But sometimes it just like didn't pan out. Um, but yeah, it always does add a certain kind of like, I don't know, specialness. Like it's like you're basically paying for memories, like, and the cost is like pretty small for such a great thing. Because yeah, I mean, yeah, you can always record like in a basement or something. Our last record was primarily recorded in a basement. We just did it. I mean, like we went to a studio for some of it, but it, I don't know. It's like we would record these songs and then there was an immediacy to some of them. So we just were like, let's just like record now. So that's the only reason I can think of, unless I'm forgetting something, that for the last record we didn't go to somewhere kind of neat. I totally think that's a great thing to do. I think it's super special and it can be costly, sure, but if you got the budget, or even if you don't, I think it's worth the thought to consider.
Yeah, you guys, your last like music video hung up. It looked like a blast.
Yes, that was very fun.
That's what made me think of the idea. Like, if you guys do things like that, like rent out a cottage and start recording kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, that was like, I mean, we didn't have to drive to like a 3.5 hour ride away up in the north to do that, but we knew someone who had this like funny cottage, and then it was like, this could just be like a fun thing to do. And like, it was during the pandemic. I mean, still in the pandemic, but it was just something fun to get out of the house and like do something different, you know? And like, I made a fire and like, we went in the water. Can't say that was a fun part, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like, the concept was like pretty loose, you could say. And then we just filmed a lot of stuff and then kind of made a narrative from that. And that wasn't the case for most of our music videos. Usually they're rather thought out. So that one was a nice change of pace where it was kind of relaxing, but also like the thrill was still there because of the pandemic, and like it was something new to do and it was still really exciting. So that was cool.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the other music video before that, The Way of the Worlds. I
Mm.
thought it was such a cool concept. I even like took the idea and made a music video for one of my songs based off of that video because I thought it was so cool.
Thanks. That was hmm. So at that point we had decided we had delayed our record. It was done in 2000 at the end of 2019. But then by the time March came, it was like, okay, there's a pandemic. And then there's all those months of just like, no one knows what's happening. But then we finally decided at some point, like, okay, we got to put this out. So we put out in the late fall, like October something, and October 23rd. And so we had been collaborating with this guy, Wyatt Clef. Do you know him?
Doesn't ring a bell.
He, he works closely with Silverstein.
Okay.
Um, and
I used to listen to them a lot.
one or two other bands. Actually, one of the guys on the music video was, I think, the bassist of Like Pacific, that band. But we were kind of just like, hey man, you got any ideas for this? And he was like, yeah, what about this? And we're like, great. That's a great idea. We don't have to be in it, and it's going to look really cool. And so what he did was he just went out with his now wife, and they just shot a bunch of footage in Toronto in the early mornings, like all over the city. And then we got like a guy to do some special effects with the ghost and some like building shots and whatnot, what have you. Um, but yeah, it was a good, simple concept that I think a decent amount of people certainly seem to like. And um, I like that we weren't in it, not just for the sake of like of COVID stuff, but a change of like almost like the hung up thing. It was just like a little bit different for us because we'd always just been in our music videos. You know, I think it's also pretty normal to not be in your music video. Let's face it. We
Yeah.
just figured like, oh, you're in your music video. That's good because then the audience can see who is performing or like what the message is like from the person. But it was cool. It was a different kind of idea that I don't think we maybe would have thought of necessarily. And I'm glad that we knew Wyatt and he had that idea.
Yeah, it's really cool. I was wondering that too, because I'm like, I think maybe it was somewhere you guys mentioned that it was filmed in Toronto, and I was like, how early did they film this? I'm like, to have zero traffic and people.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. It's pretty nuts. Yeah, there was like a highway shot too. I'm just like, how did they get that?
Yeah. Like 4:30 a.m. or something, or 5 a.m. as the sun's creaking up.
Probably. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, probably. Hmm.
Have
Feels like
you
so long.
ever have you ever done a live show with your like Savart? Am I pronouncing that right? Project?
Yeah, Art, that's right. No, I haven't. The only reason I haven't is, well, only. There are a few reasons. One would be that I don't tend to remember how to play my songs. I document them so I can remember them for later if need be. So they're on my hard drive. But typically, I write a song and then I document it and then I just move on. And then if I want to record it, then I have to relearn the song. So it's like a case of energy and time of like, okay, it would be a thing. And like, I'm not the best at remembering lyrics either. I wish I was, but I'm a bit dyslexic. And the other part is playing a show doesn't really interest me a ton with my music for some reason. I'm not sure why. Like the idea of maybe doing like a chilled out, like just like acoustic guitar or something, that's like maybe, but I wouldn't play like a lot of songs. I'd maybe play like five or six, maybe. But I certainly to start, I don't know. I've played so many shows in my life and I know it goes into it. And because I don't really have experience just talking into a microphone, it's a bit daunting. And I'm like, yeah, I guess there's a lot of reasons. It just seems like a lot to prepare for an outcome that would be like, I did it. Like, I don't really know what I would like
Yeah.
feel. Like, I liked playing shows with the band. Don't get me wrong. I just, the satisfaction from making my own music comes from making it. Yeah. It's not to say that I can't or I wouldn't feel that later from playing a show, but I'd rather focus my energy somewhere else.
Yeah, sounds like you prefer the writing over like performing aspect when it comes to music.
Definitely. Definitely.
I feel the same way. Like I haven't played played a live show in probably 10 years, but I used to, and
Oh,
it just
really?
stressed me right out.
You know what? It can be really stressful. And the worst ones, in my opinion, are the hometown shows because you know everyone. And then you have to top yourself every time because you can't be worse than last time. You just got to be better and better and better and better. And that pressure is just like, ugh. So that's one thing I will say about playing shows was playing Toronto. It almost got less and less fun in some respect because of that little bit of pressure. You'd still have fun, sure, but to just know that like there have been people in this audience who are probably seeing us for like I don't know how many, maybe it's their like ninth time, and it's like I really hope we like slay tonight because I'd feel bad if we didn't. So yeah, that's a funny one. Playing shows.
Yeah,
Who
that
knows
makes a
if
lot
I'll
of
ever?
sense.
Yeah. Who knows?
When you guys like when your second album came out too, Play for Keeps, I saw that you guys were like nominated for a Juno. I imagine that would feel like so much pressure too. That just kind of like,
Yeah. Short answer, yeah. I think uh Junos are Junos is funny because what some people may not know is you have to apply to the Junos and you have to pay to apply.
makes sense. Kind of
So,
like going to college or university or something.
yeah. And so, we got accepted and then it's like, oh, okay, wow, we're like one of 5 nominees. And it's like, this is really cool. And the whole experience of going was great. I had maybe 15% confidence in that we were going to win just because there was two other bands that I just heard of a lot more than us. Um, and at that point, we had already been around for a while, true. And like we had a song that was doing really well at the time on radio, but it just seemed like we weren't like in the spotlight as much as these other bands. And it turns out one of those other bands did win. And but yeah, all I have is like good memories from like the event and stuff. It was fun. It was just like it was a slice of life. You go to you get dressed up and you take some pictures and it's fun. It's a funny little thing. Our version of an award show in the States or something.
Yeah, I feel like most people from like the States, not in Canada, probably don't even know what the Junos are.
I can tell you most of them don't. Trust me. Almost no one knows.
But as Canadians, we know
Yep.
it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it was cool. It was definitely an honor to be have that level of flattery for sure.
My next question I wanted to ask you, I've been asking other people this too, is what's one of the favorite, like your favorite song for like your solo stuff or with the Elwins that you've been a part of, like
Part of recording or just been a part of.
yeah, just a part of, like even if it wasn't like the Elwins or Savart song, like if you've ever collaborated with someone else.
Gosh, there's a lot that come to my mind. I probably have a favorite on each release, really. But
What's your favorite off of four?
my favorite off of 4. I mean, my favorite song is 1971, the piano instrumental, because Matt's such a great piano player. And for years, I had been kind of, I don't know, just almost bugging him to like be like, you got to turn one of these like amazing piano things into a song. And then it wasn't until Frankie heard one of them, one of his recent ones, that he was like, we should record that. The song turned out well. It was recorded so quickly, like in a day. That song and Backyard at My Mom's were recorded in the same day, like basically in the same vicinity. I
Yeah,
really
that
like
one's one
that
of
one.
my favorites.
Thanks. Yeah. And I know I don't have like anything to do with it or necessarily, but like I really like that. Savart, there's a song called Song for Victoria on my album that means a lot to me because my friend Clay got to be a part of it from the States. He helped arrange the song, strings and horns and all that. And to see all the players come in that day and record their parts was like super special. Um, the song was a bit of a challenge to write, but it came from a good place of like having a crush on a girl that I never ended up going on a date with, but almost did. Um, there was some cool experimenting in that song, like sonically with some like sounds that like all the drums in it are like just mouth sounds, and then we put it on a drum pad, and then we just made like a pattern, and then like made like little different variations for certain sections. You know, we'd add a tambourine later as like an auxiliary percussion thing and like a shaker, but the basis of the song, like the foundation, was like those mouth sounds, which was cool. And like the whole ending is like very like tip of the hat to one of my favorite groups, which the song is very heavily styled after, called the High Llamas. So I did some like telephone like notes, like that's in there a little bit. Yeah, I think that song, there was a lot of fun making it. And not to say there wasn't other songs that were a lot of fun, because there were, but that one stands out a lot just because there's like so many little parts of it that were a joy.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like making the organic sounds too. Like I can't do that.
Yeah,
I like
it was.
tracking things like that for drums. I find that's like, I don't know, the most unique about music, not just like grabbing a MIDI sample or something, actually making the organic sounds and
Yeah,
building off of
totally.
that.
Yeah, it it requires some patience for sure, but if you can get a tambourine to sound the way you want it to, it is so much more worth it than a MIDI tambourine. Mind you, it's pretty hard to get a tambourine sound you like, for me, because they're
Yeah.
so annoying sometimes. I just wish like tambourines are a bit more soft, not so brash. So most of the time we just wrap them up, at least in the Elwins and stuff. Like we'd wrap it up with a shirt, so only like two of them were ringing.
Yeah, I've got one of those on the top of my hi-hat when you open and
Oh,
close it.
cool.
It's got it. And
Yeah,
it's not that great though.
yeah. We started using that in the last record actually, and it was fun. It was like a very different way of thinking about making beats and stuff, but it was cool. We probably would have used it a lot actually if the band had continued, because we were really utilizing it a lot.
Yeah, I think it's rocking the horse too.
Mm-hmm.
There's like wood blocks and stuff in there,
Yeah.
mixing it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was cool. Originally it was a cowbell, but then we're like, let's just do like a jam block because that's a bit nicer sounding.
Yeah, you can mix the cowbell, sound pretty good though.
Yeah, you can.
I was curious about the song too, slow motion or in slow motion.
Yeah, yeah, slow motion.
There's
Um,
like it's almost, I don't know what instrument it is. It almost sounds like a light buzzing and it like solos through the song. I'm like, what
oh
is
yeah,
that?
it's a saxophone.
That's cool.
We got this great player from LA named Sam Gendel, and we were just a fan of his stuff, and we kind of just dropped him a DM and we're like, "Would you want to do this? Like, do you do like session work?" And he was just like, "Yeah, cool. Here's my rate," and it was decent. So like, yeah, see what you come up with, and he sent it back, and it was like perfect. It was like exactly what we could have hoped for. It was. It sounded like a saxophone, but then other parts it didn't really sound like a saxophone. It was like he's kind of like an experimental um, artiste on the instrument, you could say. And yeah, we were kind of lucked out with him actually. It made me actually think like once that had happened, like should we have like done more of this kind of stuff earlier in our career, like just like reached out to people because this was very easy.
Yeah, just bring people in for different instruments
Yeah,
for expertise.
yeah.
Yeah, I found there was a lot more experimentation on the album myself. Like I've like been a fan of you guys since like in between the first and second album I discovered you guys. I
Cool.
found the new album is definitely a lot more experimental, but I liked it.
Thanks. It was definitely a conscious effort to shake things up a little bit, take it more back into like the band world instead of like less electronic, or for lack of a better word. Um, but also injects like weirdness, which we each of us like a lot in our own like listening. Like big fans of Frank Zappa or Ween, or just like, not that that's like, I mean it is wild stuff, but it's popular. It's not avant garde, but I don't know, just to inject some like kind of zaniness, which I don't know, each of us have. Like we're all kind of like funny weirdo guys, so we figured why not show people that side of us at this point.
Yeah, it definitely shows like you guys all your social media stuff like cracks me up. I was
Mhm.
rewatching when you guys are at the Budweiser stage, the whole Dill stories.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Yeah, the bits. That was one of the many bits. Yeah, that was a funny show. I don't, I don't, I don't even remember if there was like an audience in that show. It was so weird. It was like this pop up, almost like a corporate gig, you could say. It was right off the street, but
At
there,
like in the Budweiser stage, because I know like they
no,
did like Warp Tour there at one point too, and they fit a couple
mm,
stages.
no, this was like on Queen Street, Queen and uh, Ossington, that area, and they kind of just rented out this space, this kind of like mini courtyard, and that's where we were. It was an outdoor show, and there was like two picnic benches, maybe three. Yeah, I really can't remember if like, because we were the only people that played. We got there, we set up, then we tore down, and then my memories of that show was just like we had a lot of time to to set up, but we couldn't really sound check because it was during work hours, and like there was all kinds of businesses around, and since it was outside, it was like so loud. And yeah, my memory was like kind of weird courtyard, Dill, and I think we might have played a new song at that point. I forget which one though. Or maybe Take Me All the Way. I think we might have played that song.
Has that happened before to you where you couldn't sound check?
Oh Yeah, many times. Many times. And sometimes it was totally fine. But it's not a great feeling to know that you can't do that, obviously.
Did like when you guys played at shows too? I think it's mainly like some artists do this, but they bring around like a sound engineer with them sometimes on tour. So like they'll know exactly the levels that everything should probably be at. So in that case, you'd probably be fine.
Yeah, most of the time we were. In the last 6 years, 6, 7 years, we had a guy. It changed a little bit, but we primarily had one guy with us. So yeah, he could like just go anywhere and have his like little card and plug into most soundboards and be like, okay, I know the levels, or it wouldn't take much effort. Sometimes, yeah, sure it would, but depending on the venue and like what they had, it could have been a nightmare, but also could be like incredible, state of the art, brand new mixing board.
Yeah. Probably really depends on the like obviously depends on the venue too, how good something can sound.
Totally, yeah.
I just had a few more questions I wanted to ask you. Sort of what sort of equipment do you use for drums specifically, and like if you have like favorite guitars or pianos or something too.
Um, well, I'm not much of a gear guy, but I used YC drums. It's an Ontario
I see.
guy. Like, yeah, YC. I'm not gonna try and guess what it stands for. I knew it one time and I don't anymore. But his name is Jordan Gauthier.
Like
He works
YC.
with, yeah, YC. Um, he works closely with Arkells and July Talk, the Dirty Nil, among others. But he's just like this amazing, uh, great guy who knows everything and everything about drums. And he's been making them for years now, and he has like a solid business. And before that, I had like my first kit, or sorry, I had like my second kit. I don't even remember what my first kit was. Some kind of knockoff thing. Then I had my second kit, and it was a Rydeen. And then the kit I got after that was called a Stewart from the 70s drum set. It was really cool. But then I got a snare drum from YC from Jordan that I used for years. And then eventually he messaged me. He's like, "We gonna do like a full kit or what?" And then I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So then I used his drum kit, and that was the last thing I used. I think was his drum kit.
So like maybe your first album or two albums, you were using your Stewart kit then?
Mm, first two albums would have been widely different. First album would have been, I don't even know what, like multiple drum kits. Uh, I couldn't tell you. And the second one, I also don't know actually. I don't know. Uh, Jordan was with us. We were actually Jordan's first drum tech session. So he came from Ottawa in his mom's van with like 12 snare drums, all kinds of cymbals. And so for each song, we just like swap out things. And then like between takes, he'd like tape things a little bit, had a little muffling. He's just like incredible. Like he's a true, as I said earlier about like some musicians, he's a wizard about drums. Um, yeah. What was the original question? Um, yeah, what was the original question?
Oh yeah, just equipment that you use. Like if you had particular symbols that you're a fan of too. That's really cool. The YC drums too. I'll have to look into that. I like that's
For
Canadian
sure.
brand too.
Definitely. Yeah. No, he's awesome. I used Elvin Jones signature drumsticks for many years. The only reason I used them was because they're the ones that didn't really break. And it's not like I hit crazy hard, but I like thin sticks, and his signature stick was thin. However, in the last 3 to 4 years, they changed the manufacturing of the stick, and they're less durable now, and they break all the time. So then I switched to Los Cabos 7A.
Oh, that's what I use too. I like a thin stick that's a little bit heavier.
Yeah, yeah. Cymbals. I mean, I had a Zildjian that I liked. It's cracked, but I like it. Can't remember my crash ride, but it was great. It's really good. It still exists. Guitars. My favorite guitar is one I've never played. I just think it just looks so cool. It's the Bullet. They only made them in 1981 and 82. There's 2 designs. There's a couple basses, but the body is just so cool. And I would love to buy one day. Or certainly, I'd like to play it at the very least to see if I like it. I've heard mixed reviews if they're actually good or not. But in terms of guitar, I play my classical guitar all the time that I got for like my grade 10 Christmas or something. I play it like every day basically. That's awesome. That's my guitar. Acoustic guitar, I used to have one. I probably should have kept it, honestly, to keep a bit of strength, but I didn't. And I probably would like an acoustic guitar eventually, because it's just good to keep your fingers strong, and like you make up different things on acoustic, just like when you pick up an electric, it's like you make up a different kind of song. And same with classical. But I just gravitate towards classical because I know it the most and I'm the most proficient at it. So I stick to that. Yeah. That's my gear.
I like it. You got like some things set in stone, other things you're like, oh, whatever.
Yes, very much so. Very much. I mean, I can look at like a bass and be like, that's a sick bass, and like it plays really well. Am I going to buy a bass? No. I don't really have a need to. Just like electric guitar, it's like I have one and I like it. Would I like more? Sure. Do I have the space? No. Eventually, maybe. But honestly, like, I don't really see the point for myself.
Yeah, it's not like it's not a cheap thing to go out and buy. Maybe if you get secondhand.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of the time most of the gear we got in the band was secondhand, and we were lucky most times. Although you get better with that stuff, like what to look out for and whatnot.
I was going to ask if you have any cool tips or something that you wanted to share with like any musicians in general, or if it's like drum related, or
maybe this is like a no-brainer, but this is something that Ferd discovered in the last year, and it was cool for like recording demos and stuff, which is for your hi-hat, put your bottom hi-hat on, but then put another bottom hi-hat on, and then finish it with the clutch in the top one. Because if you have a bottom one that's like 2 on top of each other, it's so much more like how would you describe that as? Like it feels so much more like solid and like locked in, and less like flimsy. I mean, it's like what you said, like whatever you're going for, then you just try and achieve that. But I guess for the songs we were doing, we were experimenting more, and we had some guy suggested that to Ferd, or he found out about it somehow, and then we're just kind of like, this is sick. Like, it's not making like the hi-hat heavier by any means. It almost feels like it's like more secure, and there you can almost like play with the tone more in a way, not like all the way because it's like pretty rigid on the bottom, but I thought that was pretty cool myself.
So it was like two bottoms. You flipped another one onto the top. That's what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that from another drummer I follow a lot. He's like, if you want a cool sound, flip the top to the bottom, bottom to the top.
Oh, that too. I actually drummed for years thinking that was the way you did it. Like
The
that was how
logo on
you,
the bottom.
yeah, like that's how I played drums for years because I thought, oh, like that's so cool. Like, what a great way to build strength in your left foot. Like that, it's heavier. You're lifting the heavier cymbal. But then someone was like, no, 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 like that's the bottom one. It, like, it should not be like such an effort. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I spent all this time and energy building all this muscle, but then it ended up being like for no reason. But I mean, I still learned how to play drums. But yeah, yeah, the two bottom ones, like you got to get like two sets of hi hats, but like two bottoms and then just one top is that's pretty cool.
You got like ripping ankle muscles. You're like, it's so weird.
I wish, I wish. Gosh, I wish I could actually think of some more things right now in terms of like tricks and all that stuff, but I never really got into that stuff more because I think I was always so focused on songwriting and I was going to say the music side of things. It's all music. Um, but just, I felt like sometimes in the band, I felt like a songwriter who got assigned the drum kit or something as time progressed, even though my initial passion was the drums, but almost, pretty quickly it changed to like guitar and like a lot of times I wouldn't make up the parts necessarily. It was a collaboration where like a demo would be made and then I'd have to learn the whole thing. Or like we made up like one section and then we come back to the song like a month or two later and then it's like, oh, okay, like we still got to make up this thing. Or someone made up a part and then I got to relearn that from their demo. So like I have my part, but then we go in the chorus and it's like their thing. And like that's it wasn't like I was playing a show and just being like now Ferd's part or something like that. It was just it became all the same song. But in learning in creating parts, it was definitely an amalgamation of like people chipping in because a lot of the time I would have a hard time making up drum parts. I just get like overwhelmed with like, wow, there's like not a lot you can do like with this kind of rhythm, or like there's too many options.
Yeah, I
It's
can
weird.
relate to that.
Yeah, it's weird how like those polar opposites would just come up so much. It's like too many options, not enough. It never felt like, there's like I don't know. I think the best times in terms of drumming where I felt good was when I made up parts and I wasn't thinking about it and it just kind of grooved and no one said anything. There's like, and I would ask like, does anyone want anything different? And everyone's like, no, it's good. Like, yes. Finally made up a drum part that like is good and everyone appreciates. Yeah.
Yeah, did like other members of the band track demo drums too then?
Yeah, well,
It
occasionally.
sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bit of like a Beatles thing, you could say. Like, I don't know. Like, is there an example?
That's kind of nice that they know a bit about drums though, so you could actually be like, does this part sound good? Like get
Totally.
good feedback.
Ferd is like a way better drummer than me. Like, way better. and it just so happens that he's way better at guitar too. So I, you know, um, sometimes we'd make up songs where it's like I was on guitar and then he was on drums, and then like Frankie was on bass and Matt was on piano or something. Um, so it just eventually it led back to like, okay, eventually I got to learn the drum part, whoever made it up, be it me or someone else. But yeah, he's really good, and like the other two guys can play pretty fine too. I'd say they're better than like average. Not to say I'm much better than average myself, but I have a lot of experience, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw you guys play live, I think it was probably like the fall 2018 in Barrie. I remember watching you guys all rotate instruments, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that was the coolest thing I never seen other people do that
Oh,
live before, and I've been to so many shows.
thanks. Yeah, from the outpour of people today, for watchers or listeners right now, the band officially broke up today. But seeing the outpour from like friends and fans, it's been like really awesome, and a little sad, obviously, but like the amount of times we heard of people enjoying that aspect that you just brought up about people switching on stage, like people really liked that a lot, and it wasn't something that was so thought out. It was just kind of more of a means to an end of like, okay, like Matt knows this bass line, so he's going to play this bass line in Frankie's song where Frankie sings and plays guitar. So it just felt natural, and I like that people enjoyed that because it was an organic thing that kind of was cool for an audience to see. You know, I know that when I saw like the band Zeus play, they did a lot of that, and it was like, this is so freaking cool. Or like Sloan or something. It's like, this is sick. It's just like you kind of like don't know what to expect or something. It's like, what song are they gonna play even? Like, they could do anything right now.
Yeah, typically like you'll see like one musician go grab another instrument, or a front man or front person will go like
Mm-hmm.
from the guitar to the piano, but usually you don't see like a full swap,
Right.
multiple people doing it. I think that's what
Yeah.
makes it stand out, really.
And I bet you, like 100%, had the band have continued on, there would have been even more switching. Where I wouldn't have played drums, I would have played bass or guitar or something. It just was going that way, like when you write songs, you want to change it up so much that you can rent a house to record an album or something. But in the same fashion, like you want to change your approach to things, so you would create something new. So of course you would lean towards like, oh, I should do something that I'm not as familiar with or something. So in creating music, as time went on, we just found ourselves more like switching it up because, it's just something fun to do. Like, much respect to anyone who can just stay on the same instrument their whole life and just like that's their thing. Like, much kudos. But none of us are really so set on like one thing. It's just how we are, how we were.
Yeah, I can relate. It's nice to switch it up and I don't know, try something new. Yeah, if you want to wrap up though, and
Okay.
if you have any projects or anything you want to like talk about, or like give a
Well,
shout out, direct people, and then I can like add some links below.
I gotta say, shout out to the band just for existing so that I could do this interview. Um, and I have an EP coming out very shortly, a new Sabart EP. And it's going to be announced soon that I'm doing a split record with my friend Drew Smith this year. So that's been recorded. That'll be coming out sometime. I wish I knew when, but I don't. That's actually the first release of my own that's going to be coming out on a label, which is kind of exciting because it's going to be, it's going to be vinyl, which is cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love physical copies, so
Oh,
that's
nice.
cool.
Oh, Frankie's making music, so shout out to him. He's got his first show in March. I think Ferd's playing drums with him. That's at the Horseshoe on March 14th. Wow. So much man, shout outs are awesome. You can just keep shouting out so many things that you like. I love fruit roll-ups. I love pillows that are comfy.
Electric cooking glass.
Yeah.
I love lamp.
Yeah, I love lamp. Yeah. Gosh, I could go on forever. I really could go on forever. Thoughts and prayers for the 4,000 piece puzzle I'm working on right now. It's very hard. But we're getting through it, my wife and I. Yeah.
Keep it busy during the kind of a
Maybe.
lockdown.
Yeah, I've been doing so many puzzles. So many puzzles. Is this a podcast as well?
I've been putting it out as video podcasts, and then I think I'm gonna probably take audios and put them on something too.
Nice.
Whenever I can figure that out.
I guess I'll shout out the only other podcast I've been on, which is Sloan Casts. It's about the band Sloan, and it's just talking about great rock band from Canada. Sometimes retrospectives of their records. It's a lot of fun and very nerdy, and I've been very into it. And I was a guest once, and I was very honored to talk on that podcast.
Is that with members of Sloan, or that's just
no, just two mega fans? Yeah, two mega fans. One of them is in Dusseldorf, I think, but he is Canadian. And then the other guy is in Toronto. Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
They've had the members like interviewed on the show, except for one of them so far, which has been really cool. Ooh, yeah. But yeah, that should be the end of my shout outs. I've been going on too long. We should have capped it off at fruit roll-ups, but whatever. Yeah, I should probably get back to my wife, but it was a pleasure talking to you, Matt.
Yeah, it was really good to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.